So that's great. Now we can make recordings, we can save them, we can play back the ones we want, but we're still just going to fill up the phone if we don't implement the ability to delete one. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll jump back to Visual Studio. We'll go to the XAML for this, come down to the bottom here and add another handler for a delete button. And then we've added a delete image from the icons library that came with the SDK. And then let's come back to the code here at the bottom and add a little bit of code to implement the delete. So this actually comes in 3 different pieces. We have a handler for the application bar button for delete. We first want to check to see if we actually have anything selected. If we don't, we put up a traditional message box that says there's no recording selected. If there is, now we're going to use that Gamer Services message box we talked about before that's available from the XNA library, because we want to be able to use custom buttons. So this begin show message box here has a custom title, please confirm, are you sure you want to delete the selected recording, and then an array with the buttons, in this case, yes and no. And then we have a new async callback for on message box action so that when the user clicks one of the buttons, we can respond to it. So here in on message box action, we look to see which button the user clicked. And if in fact he clicked the yes button, then we're going to call delete part 2. The important thing to know is that this on message box action method is not called on the UI thread, which is why we have to use begin invoke. So we have to say deployment.current.dispatcher.beginInvoke and call the delete part 2 to make sure we call it on the UI thread. And so delete part 2 says go get the last selected file name. We need to get the info file for it. We go get isolated storage and we delete both the file and the info file. And then we reload the data in our view model by scanning all the .info files. And then we call app view model files updated in order to fire the event to get the list of files updated so our list box updates. So let's see this in action. So here's our list of files. There's our delete button. We click it first. There's no recording selected. We get our regular message box. Now we click it again. This is our recording number 2. And we delete. And we get a special dialog box. Now note 2 things. 1, there was a sound to go along with it. 2, we have a big title and a small bit of text. And 3, the system overrode the capitalization that I initially put in for the buttons. I initially put in capital Y, small e, small s for the S button and capital N-O for the No button in order to try to show that that was an important thing you might want to choose. But the system overrode that because the Metro design guidelines say those buttons are always lowercase. So in this case, we'll say yes. And you see that item was updated in the list box. We went and reread the list. So now all we have now is our first original recording. Recording 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I've got everything done for this app except recording under the lock screen. So let's go take a look at the very last build of this to see the small thing we need to add in order to be able to implement the ability to record while the user's screen goes black.